Namaste. Welcome to another edition of Navavimash podcast. So today we are starting a new series. Okay, so it's going to be a series of podcasts where Bijitda will be discussing Christianism. Okay, and the historical, philosophical, and other aspects of Christianism and how it has shaped uh, our point of view, especially the Indic point of view, and how it has affected us. So it's going to be a podcast. So this will be 11 series podcast, which we are starting today. This is the part one of this series. So in coming weeks and weekdays, we will be having multiple, maybe one or two we'll have every week, and 11 will complete the whole series itself. So, and this will be available as a playlist and as a podcast. Both are already created. So, people who are just want to be curious about the series, so you can actually find out the whole series is mentioned in the podcast itself. So, stay tuned and do subscribe to our channel, subscribe and also like the channel, so that we can invite more guests, so we can have these more discussions on academics, on papers, and also on philosophy. So, Bijitda, over to you. So, just give an overview of this series itself, and then you can start it.
Okay, sure. Uh, Namaste, and namaste to now viewers. Yeah, and please like and subscribe and spread our message because this is a new lecture series we are starting on Christianism. Because we feel like this is an area. We talk a lot about Islam in India, but the only deceptive sort of cult, which seems like it is very non-violent, it is not non-challenging a cult, and we treat it as like maybe a little bit lesser evil, more peaceful than Islam, and so we don't talk about it that much. The current political sort of party at power, for example, BJP, they don't talk about it that much because we have seen a lot of BJP leaders talking about Islam and like how to counter it and all these things, but they never talk about Christianity. Mainly because I mean, Christianity, Judeo-Christian lobby is probably the biggest lobby in the world right now. They're a very powerful lobby, and they are engaged in a lot of conversion activities in sort of in the heartland of India as well as towards the north, east, in Bengal, Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, obviously Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and they are extending even to Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan and Gujarat, all these places. And obviously, what I forgot is that land Punjab, right? I mean, it is very paradoxical how they could spread among the Rajas loving, um, I mean, very much spiritual and very lively sort of community of Sikhs, right? But they have managed to, I don't know, spread among the heartland of Sikhism as well. So that's why we need to expose this cult, because it is essentially a very dirty, superstitious cult. And that's why we are starting this sort of. Let's see how many lectures we can sort of give on this topic. So yeah, so we were planning ki, okay, we are going to cover 11 sort of different topics. The first one will be on the mythology, cult, and falsehood, which is this podcast. Then we are going to discuss ki how this sort of Christianism as a cult, they subverted the idea of right and wrong to good and evil. Then we are going to slowly discuss the critique of Christianity or Christianism in the ancient Greco-Roman philosopher. Then the point will be destruction by Christianism, perversion of morals and philosophies, split and schism in human psyche. That will be the sixth lecture. Seventh will be on colonialism and slavery, how Christianism has sort of devastated the world with ideas such as colonial by justifying ideas such as colonialism and slavery. And slavery, mind it is as much a Christian idea as it is an Islamic idea. At least it gets the theological sanctions in both Christianism as well as in Islam. And then we are going to discuss something in the sort of modern European context, which is Enlightenment and Renaissance. So we are going to sort of pick various writers and philosophers in the Enlightenment, Renaissance era, as well as in the modern European sort of context, and we're going to find out whether these guys, such as let's say, yeah, so Francis Bacon, for example. Then there are big philosophers like Hegel, um, Karl Marx, all these guys, right? We are going to find out whether they were really like promoting Enlightenment idea. They were really being apologist of Christianism. And then we are going to discuss secularism in the context of this cult. Then intention morality, spontaneous morality, all these things, how they have subverted the spontaneous morality within a man. And then finally, how to defeat the death cults. And again, when we are going to discuss how to defeat the death cults, we are going to go back to the early Roman days when the Christianism was spreading, and we're going to see, even in this podcast as well, that whatever the early Roman philosophers were predicting about Christianity and whatever they said about Christianity, as much as we know, uh, actually those are very prophetic. And whatever they predicted about Christianity, the behavior of Christianity, we need to know those logic and those critique, because Roman civilization was the first big civilization which fell prey to this Christianism, and which actually got devastated and sort of destroyed by Christianism. So this is why we are planning this lecture series again, because you see, we need to first of all prove that okay, this is a death cult, which is, and secondly, this is a death cult which is trying to spread in the Indian subcontinent. And from that perspective, actually, they are actually employing the same tricks that they employed in the Roman Empire to spread. And it will give us sort of a timeline, okay, ki where we are standing, okay, because when the Christianism was spreading in the Roman Empire, what was going on was that at different times now, if you see, different philosophers came, and their tone of critique, right, their voice, their tone of critique, how harsh they were, it was changing based on how popular or how lethally this whole cult was spreading. So basically, we need to know ki at what stage we are right now, right? And in order to know that, we have to analyze those sort of literature, at least by the Roman philosophers. And then overall, we have to judge how it has expanded into Europe, the cunningness, the deceit, the deception it has employed in order to spread in those land. So that's why we are planning this lecture, right? And obviously, one more point is, I am going to tell you. Uh, uh, I mean, by the time we finish this series, you will get to know a large number of vocabs, a large number of words, which have a very specific Christian context in which they are used, like legion, for example, like triumph. These words, right? Religio, superstitio, secularism. I mean, these are obvious words which we are using day in and day out, without knowing their meaning, without knowing their historical origin. So by the end of this lecture, probably you will get some idea. Whenever a Christian, like we know what is jihad, right? Someone, when some Islamic person is saying, "अरे हम लोग जिहाद करें," कश्मीर में अगर कोई जिहाद का नारा दे रहा है, और रालिब वालिब चालिब बोल रहा है, we know कि अच्छा, कुरान का वो वाला आयत वहां से ये उठा रहा है। या फिर कभी भी अगर लड़कियों को खेती बता रहा है, तो हम लोग पता है कि कुरान का चैप्टर 2 से ही ये चीज उठाया जा रहा है। जब बोल रहा है कि इफ यू सस्पेक्ट डिसोबीडियंस फ्रॉम योर वुमेन, यू कैन बीट हर, फिर मुझे पता है कि कुरान का 4.34 से उठाया जा रहा है, सूरा निसा से। सो वी नो द वर्ड्स, राइट? वी नो द वर्ड मुजाहिद, जिहाद, नूर, all these words, right? Prophet, Nabi, All these words we know. I mean, it has been widely discussed already in the social media everywhere. Gajwa Hind, these sort of word we know. So similar way, I will try to give you. I'll try to build a vocab of Christian words which are used in very specific contexts, so that when they're using those words to me to in the argument, you get to know where they are going actually with their argument, so that you can counter them, right? So yeah, so that's our plan. Let's see how much we can achieve with this lecture series. So yeah, so this is the plan. And yeah, so let's begin with today's topic, which is
Yes. So what I will do, I will be in the backstage. Okay. So once your lecture is about to end, then I will come back and then we will initiate the discussion with the. Also, audience will be able to talk to us, but we will share
sure.
that link a little bit later. Admin, just share that link on the members only tab so that people can come and join and discuss at the end of the show. So you'll be able to do that. So I'll be in the backstage, and Bijita, you can continue with the lecture.
Sure. So let's begin. So today's lecture is about the mythology, cult, and falsehood of Christianity. I mean, it is Christian, or I am calling it in this lecture series a Christianism, because it is essential in ism. It is an ideology. It is worst kind of ideology, because it is cultish and it is a superstitious cult. And I'm going to prove that in this thesis, which adopt falsehood and different myths in order to propagate. So this is one point. Because it is sort of a death cult. It is that sort of an superstitious ideology. That's why I am prone to call it Christianism and not Christianity. So if I ever do the mistake of using the word Christianity, please let me know. And yeah, मैं माफी मांग लूंगा फिर. ठीक है. So many a time, for example, um, let's say yesterday, right, when the whole H1B visa and all these things were sort of going on in Twitter, and you could have seen a lot of Twitter posts that were coming from United States, the red-headed Christian lobby, which were basically saying, "Ki, "Arey, India, it's a third world country. People take poop on public and all these things," right? Now, if they are arguing ki, uh, I mean, Indians take poop in public, you frame the argument this way: ki, okay, if Indian are taking whatever, Indian are pooing in public, but dude, you have adopted Christianism. Okay, you guys are Christian, so it is as dirty. This cult is as dirty as taking a poop in public. Okay, I'm saying this because just like pooping in public is disgusting, this cult has actually subverted and created dirt within human mind, human psyche, and in fact, it has created a huge split in human psyche in order to propagate all the subversive ideologies. You need to know that um, big civilizations like Roman civilization or our Arya civilization, Aryavarth, Indian, whatever you call it, these civilizations could flourish, propagate, and expand this much, um, primarily because the founders and the people who are living and working and sort of breathing under this civilization, they did not have a split within their psyche. They were very proud people. They had obviously some way to express their bhakti. they had a they had some ways to express their philosophical idea about the world, what they are looking around. But those theories, those theologies, those I would bring the word religion here. It is coming from the word religio, which I will discuss in a couple of minutes. So this, their religion, right? Whatever they were believing and they were writing, th- those ideas did not have any deceit um, inherently. Okay, so because those writing those spiritual ideologies did not have any split, it was not invented to manipulate human beings, right? So essentially what I'm saying ki in the top down, I mean, it's not that the Roman or Indian emperor, they were not aware of the fact that they can manipulate their prajas with some ideologies, but there are enough number of writings, at least from the Roman historians, where they are specifically saying ki, what should be an ideology that the Roman Empire, for example, can sort of sanction or can adopt. The philosophers can talk about it. That would not that would not create a split. That would not subvert the praja, right? The common people who are making the Roman Republic. And there are plenty of writings. The philosophers were very open about those discussions, and they were afraid of subversion. कि कोई ऐसा थियोलॉजी आ सकता है जो ह्यूमन बीइंग के अंदर एक एसेंशियली स्प्लिट क्रिएट कर सकता है, उनको गुलाम बना सकता है. It can take basically strip them of their pride as a human being, because Roman people were very noble aristocrat, and they were happy. And from the letters, as we can see, they were very proud human beings. So they were very, I mean, watchful about the propagation of any ideology that had the potential to convert people into zombies. Okay, and I'll prove that again in from various writings. Okay, so in these circumstances, right? Some this ideology, this theology, this cult of Christianism emerged, right? Essentially, it borrowed a lot of idea from Judaism. It borrowed a lot of idea from paganism, the Egyptian paganism, and a lot of hedonistic idea that were getting famous around the Roman Empire at that time, because they had to capture the mind of the downtrodden or the eccentric or the sort of criminal, for example. They had to capture the mind of those people. So that's why they adopted some hedonistic ideas as well. And you know what is Christianism, right? You know there is someone who got crucified, right? Who by Romans probably, and then so this is the story. The point is, Christianism don't have any document at the time of this guy called Jesus that can historically prove that Jesus existed. Okay, the earliest account of Christianism that we get was on, I think, 72 AD. Jesus died on 40 AD, so it was at least after 32 years of his death. So at the time of Jesus, no one was talking about Jesus, no miracle, nothing, no historicity. But suddenly this cult got popular. Okay, and some people wrote one phrase about it in 72 AD. And yeah, some this guy got hook nailed on a cross, and after that it is believed, okay, before that guy got crucified, Jesus got crucified last night before the crucifixion. He had a dinner with, I think, 13 disciples. um, and then after the third day, I guess, after he was crucified, he had some sort of ascension, so he was sort of resurrected, right? And then he promised there will be a apocalypse, the last day of judgment, when I'll be there, and whoever believes in me and my cult is going to go to heaven, and whoever doesn't believe in me and my cult are going to be burnt in hellfire for eternity, and all these things. Better wording. Someone was made the scapegoat to remove accountability from all the cult members. Ha ha, right, right. I mean, see, these are essentially some cults and cannibalistic cults, which I'm going to I'm going to show you in a while. Um, So yeah, so this is the essence of this cult, right? There's a guy, he's the son of God, and he's the son of God, and he's the God, basically. Okay. So in Christianity, you have this idea of this trident, right? You have the God, his Son, and his Holy Spirit, and all three of them are essentially God, right? In Christianity. So yeah, so this son of God, and then they believe in some basically some uh, Jewish idea which says that there initially there were guys like Adam and Eve, and they committed some sin because unknowingly they ate some apple from the Eden garden of God. So that's why they were banished, and because they committed some sort of, they did some wrongdoing, and we are the essentially the offspring of Adam and Eve, so we are also the sinner. And moreover, we are sinner because it is us, the humanity, who crucified the Jesus, the Son of God. So basically, they took a random event of crucifixion of some guy, and they started to incriminate the whole of humanity as sinners. You guys are the sinners, because you crucified Jesus. You are the offsprings of Adam and Eve. Jesus was not the sinners, by the way. Why? Because he was born in a virgin womb, which was this the virgin named Mary, and because he was not a product of copulation, hence he is not a sinner. um, and But you guys are product of all this original sin, hence you are the sinners. So you have to come to Christianity. I mean, you guys, the whole of humanity is sinner pretty much. But then Christianism has a good news, which is that the good news is that there exists Christianity, as per them, right? Why? Because now the sinners can adopt Christianity, and they can sort of exculpate themselves of all kind of sin, and they can go to heaven, right? So this is the idea, right? Now you need to know that the whole story of Virgin Mary, it was actually misinterpreted, because originally in the when it was written in Hebrew, uh, the original word is actually, it means ki Kumari, okay, young girl, but that got mistranslated during the translation from Hebrew to Greco-Roman languages, and then it became virgin woman. Okay, and so hence the whole myth of virgin woman started. So you need to know that, right? It is the idea of Virgin Mary is not some heavenly idea. It was a human error of translation that started this cultish belief, that Jesus was basically born out of some virgin womb. Anyway, so now coming back, so it was again, it was started in pretty much Judea. This place is called Judea, right? The places around Jerusalem, and from Judea it started to enter into the Roman Empire. Why? Because Roman Empire, I mean, obviously Judea was part of Roman Empire, and but all the so as the Romans, right, कि जितने गंदे आइडिया है, सारे अच्छे और गंदे आइडिया सब रोम में घुस जाता है, right? Because everyone wanted to expand their idea. Rome was the center of philosophical discourses, and there were great orators, philosophers, all kind of people living there. There were a lot of quote unquote kappa, right? A lot of crazy mad people like Diogenes, who were also hailed as philosophers. जैसे हमारे बामा खेपा होते हैं, रामकृष्ण देव को भी हम लोग खेपा ही बोलते हैं, राइट? वहां पे भी खेपा का मैड लोगों का एक अलग सा जगह दिया, दर्जा दिया जाता था रोम में भी। तो खेपा लोगों का भी वहाँ पे आइडियोलॉजी पे बात होता था। बट ये यहाँ से लिखते हैं, द रोमन्स आर राइटिंग कि जितने जितने गंदे आइडिया है, दे गेट ओरिजिनेटेड इन जुडेया एंड देन दे कम इन टू रोम। ये उन्होंने लिखा है कि जितने भी घटिया आइडिया है वो जुडेया में क्रिएट होके रोम में घुसता है। ठीक है, आई कोट इट। Someone said it. I'm going to, I'm going to tell you the name in a while. Um yeah. So, but that was the quote. I will name the philosopher who said that. Anyway, so basically क्या होता था रोमन जो वहाँ पे जो कल्चर था they were basically the nature loving nature worshipping culture just like Hindu culture. So pretty much they were like Romans were Hindu, um, and they prided themselves on their religio. Okay, what is religio? Religio actually mean ki it is something which is rational, pragmatic, public, and state sanctioned. ठीक है कि religio just like our dharma, right? And it also meant duty, by the way. So religio was rational, pragmatic, public, state sanctioned, harmony with the gods. Okay, pax decorum इसे कहा जाता है. So religio is something which keeps you in harmony with gods. God, which god? Pretty much the natural god, right? That Romans believed in. So yeah, so the conditions where it has to be rational, pragmatic, it has to be practiced in public. You cannot do it कि खोपचे में जाके कर लिए. रोमन उसके लिए persecute करते थे. If you if any Roman used to practice any cult or anything चोरी छुपे, they used to persecute those communities. And it has to be state sanctioned, just like Buddhism, for example, right? And it had to be upheld. It needed to uphold the moral fabric of the Roman Empire, right? And they contrasted, and this is the definition given by this guy Cicero. So Cicero was the guy. Cicero was a Roman orator and philosopher who saw the whole assassination of Julius Caesar, uh, and after that he was a big orator. Then he gave the idea of republic. Okay, कि रिपब्लिक क्या है कि जो आम जनता होगा वहां से वो लोग स्टेट पावर में कौन बैठेगा वो चुनेंगे. दिस इज द आइडिया ऑफ रिपब्लिक व्हिच वाज फर्स्ट sort of conceived at least in the Roman Empire by this guy Cicero. Okay, and this is the same guy Cicero who basically gave two words. Okay, who discussed extensively. So who wrote a lot of letters as well, and in one of the letters he basically made a distinction between two words, two ideas. One is religio, and second is superstitio. सो अभी जैसे बोला जाता है कि ऑल रिलीजियन आर सुपरस्टिशियस, रोमन इस पे बिलीव नहीं करते थे, तो उनके लिए जैसे धर्म अलग होता था सुपरस्टिशन अलग होता था, तो रिलीजियो और सुपरस्टिशियो वहां पे अलग होता था. बिकॉज रिलीजियो जैसे मैंने बताया, रिलीजियो इज समथिंग विच इज सॉर्ट ऑफ which talks about your duty, which talks about harmony with the eternal God, the pax deorum, which was rational, pragmatic, which could be publicly discussed and practiced, and which used to be state sanctioned, and which used to hold the moral fabric of the empire. Okay, so this was religio, and then he contrasted it with superstitio, and superstitio is he defined superstitio as the irrational fear for the gods. Okay, and he basically says that how to identify a superstition. He says that okay, maybe something which is foreign and not rooted in the Roman tradition, because again he was a very proud Roman, which is secretive in rituals and oaths, which is fanatical in devotion and exclusionary in practice, and fourthly, which is socially destabilizing, which breaks family, civic, and political bonds. Now, just imagine like the sort of durdrishti of this guy. So, just like the way he defines superstitio is actually the definition of all these. I mean, all the Abrahamic cults fall into this category, right? Um, Something which is foreign, which means which is not organic, which is not rooted in tradition, which is secretive in rituals and oaths. कि कहीं जाके खोपचे में सब मिलके कुछ whatever नमाज पढ़ लिया, कोई प्रेयर कर लिया, and they started discussing how to subvert the culture. So secretive, fanatical in devotion, exclusionary in practice, कि हमारे अलावा बाकी जो है वो काफिर है या डिसबिलीवर है और हम लोग ही बेसिकली सुप्रीम है. Exclusionary in practice. And then socially destabilizing, something that break family, civic and political bond. So this is the definition of superstition. And Cicero was the guy, by the way, who was born before Christ. So it's not like this guy is looking at Christianism and then defining this thing like in situ. No, no, it did not happen that way. Cicero, as I said, he was at the time of Julius Caesar when he got assassinated. So probably he could have seen the Judaism, or this is how he defined it. And by the way, in the mainstream sort of discussion of Christianism, they try to demean this guy Cicero. Why? Although he is the father of the idea of republic. So in I think in Game of Thrones, you might have seen this guy called Varys, Lord Varys, right? So Lord Varys, he was this bold guy who was a little bit of gay, right? Who used to be very silent in giving advice, a little bit meek and submissive, right? So Varys was weird, right? So I think they created this character Varys in the image of Cicero. Okay. Anyway, so he defined this thing. Now, when the Christianity arrived, immediately a lot of philosophers they started talking about it. Initially, it did not get much traction, but they could identify. For example, there was an administrative person like Pliny the Younger. Um, I think the current form of Christianism is the outcome of Nicene Creed. I mean, I'll gradually go because this is the again 10 lecture करेंगे इस पे तो धीरे धीरे करेंगे इस पे. Was religio a concept like dharma? Exactly. Religio is defined as rational, pragmatic, public, state sanctioned harmony with the gods and something that upheld the moral fabric of the empire, of the Roman civilization, right? So it is just like dharma. And religion is just a distortion of this word. Just like everything Christianism has distorted the word religio as well, and instead of calling itself a superstition, they are calling itself as a religion, right? Which is actually very much subversive and funny. Anyway, तो मैं कहाँ पे था? हाँ. So basically, when the earliest account we get is around 70 to 80. But when the Romans encountered Christianism, um, they could immediately sort of identify that it was superstitio as per the definition of Cicero, right? And they immediately could recognize that this was not a civic cult. So there were various cults at that time, like cult like Isis. So Isis was a Egyptian god probably. Then there was a guy called Serapis. Again, I think it was Greco-Egyptian god like Varun Dev. There were other forms as well, like uh, yeah, there was a Bacchic cult, okay, Bacchic. So Bacchic cult was like hedonism. Ki daru piyenge. It was like, I don't know, charva could not be a proper analogy, but it was just like the following the idea of this guy Diogenes, right? Ki हम लोग दारू so we are completely free and we are going to worship this god, Greco-Roman god called Bacchus. Bacchus was a god of wine, freedom, intoxication, and ecstasy. Like Kamdev, I don't know Kamdev is a real whether this is an appropriate equivalence, but it is like it was a god of ecstasy, god of wine, god of intoxication. Okay. So Bacchic cult was getting famous. So initially Romans had reservation against this cult because Bacchic cult used to be considered as a very eccentric cult. Okay, but then somehow the Romans could integrate it into the Roman idea of dharma, Roman idea of religio. Okay, But then when Christianity arrived, they could immediately recognize that this is exclusionary in practice. This guy exclusively says ki you are not me, right? There was a otherization, us and them, and because of that, it was not a civic cult or any sort of eccentric morality uh, that could be integrated into the empire's pluralistic pantheon of religios. But they could say कि this Christianism is an alien subversive sect, okay, that need to be carved down. और फिर उसके बाद Pliny the Younger, who was basically an administrator of the current Turkey, he could see कि so Turkey at that time used to be called Bithynia, okay, Bithynia. So he's writing to the Emperor Trajan. He says ki there are some cultish people who are meeting before the dawn, because he's sort of a commander and he roams around. He used to roam around and he's pretty much checking ki प्रजा क्या कर रहे हैं. So he basically is reporting to the emperor कि there are some people new cult who are chanting hymns like Christ as to the God, and who are taking strange oaths, who are eating a common meal, okay, and who are very much uh, obstinate. Okay, so obstinate and fanatic superstition. Superstitio preva et immodica. They are very much superstitious. They are fanatic about it. And for Pliny, their refusal to sacrifice to the emperor and their absolute loyalty to Christ placed them outside the civic order. Their secrecy smacked of conspiracy. So जैसे ये रोमन कमांडर वगैरह वहां पे जाते थे, then these Christians were like used to say oaths कि हम लोग इसलिए यहाँ पे gather हुए हैं कि we are taking oaths, we are discussing how to do good of the empire, we are taking oaths not to commit theft or adultery. But ये दिखावा था प्लिनी के अकॉर्डिंग, राइट. ये दिखावा था क्योंकि ये जो लोग थे ये रोमन एम्परर को मान नहीं रहे हैं, and they are putting their absolute loyalty in Jesus Christ, basically, who placed them outside the civic order. And this secrecy is smacked of conspiracy. Okay? And this Pliny is reporting this around 100 AD or so. Okay? Now, now there was this guy called Tacitus around 116 AD. So उस टाइम पे शायद नेरो आया था. नेरो ने शायद कुछ क्रिश्चियनिज्म को फैलने नहीं दिया था. दैट्स व्हाई नेरो is sort of the villain. He's the emperor. Nero is portrayed as a villain कि जब रोम जल रहा था तब नेरो वायलिन बजा रहा था. ये गलत तरीके से इसलिए पोर्ट्रे किया जाता है क्योंकि नेरो क्रिश्चियनिज्म के आगे झुका नहीं. ठीक है. हाँ, इस धनराज का मैं फॉलो किया हूँ. आई एम जस्ट गोइंग थ्रू लिटरेचर नाउ इट इज, क्योंकि मुझे इसके बारे में लिखना भी है. सो आई एम जस्ट पुटिंग एवरीथिंग इन अ कोहेरेंट सीरीज. दैट्स माय अटेम्प्ट एज ऑफ नाउ. तो हाँ, तो नेरो इसलिए विलेन है क्योंकि नेरो क्रिश्चियनिज्म को बढ़ने नहीं दिया था. तो मतलब यू विल वेरी रेयरली हियर अबाउट गुड थिंग्स अबाउट ऑफ नेरो, एम्परर नेरो, राइट. And anyway, so Tacitus, writing about Nero's persecution, he famously calls Christianism as a deadly superstition. He describes how it spread from Judea, and Tacitus is the guy who said that the Judea is the origin of all things vile, into Rome itself, where all the shameful things gather and flourish. राइट कि टैसिटस बोल रहा है कि जितने भी ये सब गंदी चीजें हैं उसका ओरिजिन जुडिया है, मतलब जेरूसलम है. एंड दे आर कमिंग टू रोम, जहाँ पे सारी गंदी चीजें ऐसे गैदर होके फ्लोरिश होना चालू हो जाता है. टैसिटस पोर्ट्रेड क्रिश्चियनिज्म नॉट एज अ नोबल फेथ बट एज अ contagious disease that undermines Roman virtue. Roman virtue of what? Roman virtue of nobility, aristocracy, pride, right? क्रिश्चियनिटी में ये सब कुछ था नहीं. एंड जस्ट लाइक अभी जैसे हमारे रिमोट एरिया में कन्वर्शन चलता है, वहाँ पे भी Christianism was getting into trying to convert the criminals, the downtrodden, the uneducated people. In fact, the Roman Empire used to say that these Christian people are mostly they are illiterate. Okay. Then there's this guy Suetonius. So he wrote an extensive account of um, मतलब history on the lives of the Caesars. Okay. जहाँ से रोमन सारे जो लगभग सेट ऑफ रोमन एम्पर उनके बारे में पता चलता है. And he refers to Christians as people given to a new and mischievous superstition. Superstitio nova ac malefica. A superstition that malfunctions. In his eyes, they were troublemakers, disturbing public order with their novelty and exclusivity. Right? And for all these aristocrats and historians, they are writing that the Christianism had no resemblance whatsoever to the balanced piety of religio. It was precisely what Cicero has warned against, which is the superstitio, any superstitio should be recognized with irrational excess and foreign mania. ठीक है, फॉरेन मैनिया, बाहर वाला जो भी आइडियोलॉजी के लिए लोगों का मैनिया होता है, जैसे इंडिया में काफी होता है ना, गोरों के लिए एक अजीब सा मैनिया है. दैट इटसेल्फ इज अ कल्ट, दैट इटसेल्फ इज अ सबवर्सिव कल्ट. तो यहाँ पे रोमन बैरिस्टोक्रेट्स हिस्टोरियन दे आर राइटिंग कि दीज क्रिश्चियंस दे आर फॉरेन मैनिया. ठीक है, ये फॉरेन चीजों को लेके उछलता रहता है. राइट. तो हाँ, तो बेसिकली यहाँ पे नाउ लेट्स डिस्कस कि व्हाट आर द स्पेसिफिक ट्रेट्स that for which I am saying कि Christianism was a cult. And these rationale are given by the Roman aristocrats and historians themselves, right? So they are writing ki the Christians they are having secret meetings. Okay. So the Roman historians writing ki these Christians they meet in private, often at night, arousing suspicion of conspiracy. And any legitimate worship should be public and transparent. ठीक है. Second point, कि they are taking strange oaths, and they pledges not to commit crime, but it sounds less like civic virtue and more like cultic initiation rites in the presence of soldiers. Then the Romans are wondering, why would a virtuous man need to swear such oaths unless something darker was hidden? कि हमारे सामने इतना मतलब एक्सप्लिसिटली ऐसे बोल क्यों रहे कि मैं बहुत अच्छा हूँ, आई डोंट वांट टू कमिट एनी थेफ्ट और एनी एडल्ट्री. मतलब इतना एक्सक्लूसिवली बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है ना. इफ समवन इज वर्चुअस, इट डजंट नीड टू बी दैट मच एक्सप्लिसिट और सॉर्ट ऑफ एग्जिबिट कि एक्सप्लिसिटली कि मैं मतलब शुड नॉट बी एज वोकल. राइट, ये अंदर से आता है ये सब मोरल. ये इतना बोलने का चीज नहीं है कि मैं चोरी नहीं करता हूँ, चोरी नहीं करता हूँ. कौन बोलता है ऐसे? राइट. So this was something that Christians were doing at that time. Then they are writing Christian thrives on poverty and misery. Right, right. Worship of a criminal. So Romans are writing that Christianism venerated a crucified criminal who is Jesus. It is very absurd and shameful. Roman religion worshipped noble ancestors, civic gods, and celestial deities, not executed rebels. कि जो रोमन सेंस ऑफ स्पिरिचुअलिटी है वो शहादत के लिए लोगों को भगवान नहीं मानता. नोबेल आइडिया ऑफ फिलोसफी, दे बिलीव इन समथिंग which are basically the gods are civic gods, the deities are celestial and not like some executed criminals. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट जो इन्होंने उठाया, which is cannibalism and incest rumors. कि these guys are inherently like maybe they're cannibals and they're incestuous. Why? So the Romans detected that the Christians they spoke of eating Christ's body and Christ's blood. ये कहाँ से आ रहा है? क्योंकि जब जो द लास्ट सपर जो होता है, लास्ट सपर में जीसस उनके डिसाइपल्स को बोलता है कि दिस ब्रेड यू आर ईटिंग दिस इज माय मीट एंड द वाइन यू आर हैविंग दिस इज माय ब्लड. और ये क्रिश्चियन ये basically they used to propagate this idea कि we are eating Christ's body and Christ's we are drinking Christ's blood. So then Roman heard it and they started to accuse them of cannibalism. And then they also saw one more weird thing कि ये लोग एक दूसरे को ब्रदर सिस्टर बुलाते हैं एंड देन शादी कर लेते या फिर कॉपुलेशन कर लेते हैं, राइट? सो ये उनको रोमन्स के लिए काफी वियर्ड था. सो रोमन स्टार्टेड टू से कि ये किस तरह का मोरालिटी है कि भाई बोल रहे हो, बहन बोल रहे हो और उससे शादी कर रहे हो. Is it like, are you guys doing some incestuous orgies? Okay. And then Christianity adopted this thing from other secretive cults. Okay. So that's why the Romans got that much concerned कि maybe these guys are practicing something deeply incestuous, right? Exclusivity. So the Romans started to say कि unlike any traditional cult like hedonism or this Bachi cult, right? Or ISIS. ISIS was, by the way, it was like Yama, right? यम की तरह जैसे जो डेथ के बाद जो यम लोग ले जाते हैं, वो अपना कोई बंदा भेजता है जो यम लोग पहुंचाता है. उसी तरह इजिप्ट का जो देवी था वो आइसिस था, ठीक है. और एक वरुण देव था जो जिसका नाम सेरापिस था. तो ये बेसिकली दे वर इजिप्शियन गॉड्स, बट दे स्टार्टेड टू बी इंक्लूडेड in the Roman idea of spirituality gradually. Or Romans initially they had suspicion कि actually ये तो cult है, but then they were fine कि भाई they are not exclusive. But what they noticed this time was that कि this is not like the Bachi cult or any other traditional cult, because those cults used can coexist in pluralism. Christianism cannot exist in a plural society because they reject all other gods as demons. Hence, Christianism is arrogant. It declares all the ancestrals worship, ancestral sense of moral and ethics as false, and it violates the Roman principle of tolerance and civic harmony. Okay. So they noticed for the first time that these cults are actually exclusive cults. They have this otherization, us and them otherization that they believe in, and because of that, they should not thrive in a plural society. The next point was obstinacy. So Pliny and others they noted that the sheer stubbornness of Christians, their refusal to sacrifice, even when they were threatened to death, is actually very much fanatic, and it is not noble martyrdom, but it is actually irrational fanaticism, the mark of a dangerous sect. Okay, so this is why the Romans started to say that this is not a religious, this is actually a death cult. Okay, this is, I mean, Christianism is basically a superstition. Okay, right. Um, so let me, um, if the moderator is here, we can take a few questions if there exist any. I want to just drink some water and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
resume the
we
discussion.
can take questions. Go ahead.
Just give me a minute or
No
so.
issues. Okay, so let's see. We don't have question. Interesting. Okay, Abhay. So your comment that it thrives on poverty and misery. What do you think can be a solution? Is the solution that the society becomes much more prosperous? And if that is the case, then what we need? Capitalism? Do we need any other, or maybe we can devise our own dharmic capitalism? So where it has a bit of what would you say, welfare, but it gives the general rights to everybody, okay, to do their business and just have their personal lives. So that can be a case as well. Let's see. Uh, no, 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 no. I think just a rumor, nothing else. Okay. We need Hinduism. Okay, this is retro saying. We need Hinduism and capitalism together so that we don't become like USA or China, just materialistic and very good point, okay, which I think is missing from a lot of called libertarian things. Correct. So they are solely focused on the economic development, but we have to have a holistic development. You as a human being need more than money, car, or house. Correct. You also have your social needs. You also have your spiritual needs. How do you facilitate that? So yes, so it can be called as a dharmic capitalism, okay, where we incentivize also the need for spiritual healing as well as part of capitalism. Abhay says, remove poverty through capitalism and revive temples as institutions for social security. Yes, it was there previous as well. Yeah, Bijda.
Huh.
Hmm.
Okay, right.
So, yeah, you can restart.
Right. So, yeah, so basically what these Romans are now saying, ki, okay, this is a superstitio and not a religio, and it is against reason, right? So, basically, Roman philosophers, especially Stoics, so basically, you can see that critique against Christianity is coming from all kind of philosophers. I mean, you have Stoicism, you have Porphyry, you have, let's say, hedonism. Every kind of philosophers, they are saying that this is not healthy, um, and it is not merely eccentric; it is actually subversive. Okay, so
Bijit,
Stoics. Uh-huh.
On that point, I think this question can be answered. I think this is relates to your what you're talking about now. So, can we kindly tell us about how Christians came about from the Jewish group and how they separate themselves from the Jews?
How they separate themselves from the Jews. So
Hmm.
basically, a lot of things that okay. So Jews, they have the Old Testament. Now the Christians, they claim ki they believe in Old Testament, and also they have the New Testament. It is the typical narrative ki Old Testament. Basically, it is maybe some of the things were not were changed in the course of time, and then a new set of apostles, they came after Christ and his disciples, because Christ was the Son of God, right? And the disciples who came in contact with Jesus, they wrote
Bijit,
the
Bijit, just
collection.
yeah, just one thing. See, in terms of whatever has been done by the historical research on Jesus existing 2000 years ago, correct? So even the Western scholars have like mentioned that okay, the historical Jesus did not exist. There is a large body of work on this.
Jesus, see, Jesus
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't exist.
So the question is, just to delve into this, when we are talking about the Jewish faith, correct? From Jewish faith, Christianity began, okay, or taken root, okay. So if we take that argument that historical Jesus did not exist, then was it something of a like maybe an obscure cult which became later like maybe a sect of Jews or Judaism became Christian later, and then it was invented.
This is in fact, matlab, Christianism, they claim ki what is Bible? Bible is a set of narratives, a set of books, right? It's not a इट्स नॉट समथिंग कि एक इंस्टेंस में आ गया और सारा लिख दिया गया. दे से कि ये जॉन द अपोस्टल आया, उसके बाद कोई आया, एंड दे wrote a bunch of things, bunch of so Bible itself means books, right? So and testament is coming from the word testimony, right? कि इन्होंने गॉड के बारे में जो टेस्टिमनी दे रहे हैं, ये जो अपोस्टल्स है, ये जीसस है, दीज आर दिस इज न्यू टेस्टामेंट. एंड उसको बाइबल इसलिए कहा जाता है बिकॉज इट इज बुक रिटन बाय whom? By the apostles. So unlike Islam, एटलीस्ट मतलब क्रिश्चियनिटी डजंट क्लेम कि वो मतलब जीसस के अंदर आया, मतलब वो आयात नाजिल हो जाता है जैसे इस्लाम के प्रॉफिट को, वो जीसस में नहीं होता है. बट दे क्लेम कि हाँ, सारे जो ह्यूमन बीइंग है, सारे जो अपोस्टल्स थे, उन्होंने एक सीरीज ऑफ वर्क लिखा गया है. उन्होंने जो लिखा है, दैट इज बेसिकली द न्यू टेस्टामेंट. एंड
Bijit, there
देयर
are
आर वेरी
few questions.
मेनी.
There are few
हाँ हाँ.
questions. I think it's interesting. This is a good. Okay, we can take this one. It's very small. If no Saint Augustine, no Christianity. Is that correct, or like it is bit simplistically to be
I think
debunked?
it is a little simplistically put,
Hmm.
because because initially it was, see, initially the Christians, they did not feel the need to come up with a Bible or any book or anything, right? So it was some sort of a cult that they propagated among the illiterates. In fact, initially, when even the saint, this guy, Constantine the Great, got into power and he got converted, that was from there the golden age of Christianism and the dark age of humanity started. Um, and at that point, they used to claim being illiterate. They used to claim and they used to feel proud about the fact that they were not educated as Romans. In their word, they were representing the downtrodden people, the illiterate people. So initially in Christianism, it was a matter of pride कि भाई हमें पढ़ना लिखना नहीं आता. ठीक है. सो ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई सेंट ऑगस्टिन आया और उसने कुछ कंसोलिडेट कर दिया. Was Christianism necessary to remove the cult being constant to Jerusalem?
Okay.
I
Hmm.
I don't think I understand this question.
Okay, so was Christianity necessary to remove the cult being constraint of? So I think it mentioned that okay, like when Judaism fell apart, the Christianity actually came from the womb and like it was a cult, but it was kept in wraps.
अच्छा, ऑडियंस, कैन यू टेल मी कि भूपेंद्र, आई एम नॉट, आई कैन नॉट हियर भूपेंद्र क्लियरली.
Okay,
So
you have to tell me
can
fast.
audience
Okay.
please tell ki if I should come back?
Okay. Now can you hear me? I think the audio is okay from my end. You're able to
Okay,
hear
okay,
me?
okay. I can hear
I
you.
think
Can you
yeah.
hear me clearly
I can hear
without
you
any?
clearly. Clearly,
Okay,
clearly, no
okay.
issues. Okay. So, okay, this is a bit confusing thing, so we'll take it later. We need to do a bit research on this. But you can actually rephrase the question and we'll take it again. So, Paula Fredrickson, book When Christianity Are Jews deals on this topic. Okay. So, have you heard of the
I
author,
see.
Paula
I have
Fredrickson?
to read this. Ha.
Okay.
I have to
Thank
read
you.
this part.
We will do that.
I basically the lecture, at least for this lecture, you can use the reference Catherine Nixie. Okay, Catherine Nixie had this book titled The Darkening Age, The Christian Destruction of the Classical World. Okay, it's a very good book, and it is not a book by an apologist. So you can, because you see the problem when we look around for this Greco-Roman literature that are critiquing Christianity. Na, the problem is that a lot many such books are actually printed by Christian publishers. So, for example, this one, right? So I ordered this one. uh, this, The Barbaric Conversion by Richard Fletcher.
Bijita,
Right.
I will be back in 1 minute. Okay, I'll be back in
Sure,
1 minute.
sure, sure. So, for example, this book, this is written by some Christian publisher, and the problem there is कि the critique में भी काफी सारी चीजें ये लोग ढक देते हैं या छुपा देते हैं. तो इसलिए whenever you are reading some book ना, at least about the critique of Christianity, just check once कि ये पब्लिशर कौन है, राइटर कौन है, उसका बिलीफ किस तरह का है, उसका बाकी सारे जो वर्क्स है वो किस तरह का है, सो दैट यू गेट टू अंडरस्टैंड कि ये दिमाग में क्या लेके ये बुक लिख रहा है. ठीक है. तो इसलिए आई थिंक ये जो अभी मैंने जो बुक बताया, अपना जो कैथरीन निक्सी का जो बुक है, वो आई थिंक शी wrote a lot of facts with proper references. तो इसलिए ये बुक मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ और रेफरेंस के लिए यूज करता हूँ. ठीक है. तो एनीवे, तो हाँ, basically it is now a fight between superstitio and reason. And Marcus Aurelius, right, later in around 180 AD or so, he is writing. So he was a Stoic emperor, so he believed in Stoicism. Okay, and this guy is writing ki these Christian martyrs, they are becoming martyrs not as noble but as obstinate and theatrical. कि ये लोग ड्रामा कर रहे हैं and they are seeking death out of fanaticism, not reasoned virtue. तो इनके लिए मरना कोई honor, it's not a very honorable काम, but it is merely some drama. It is an obstinate act and it is fanaticism. Okay, because they believe in a cult. And then for intellectuals steeped in Platonic or Aristotelian thought, these Christian myths appeared childish and incoherent. Okay, so basically this is what initially the Roman philosophers are saying, and they are claiming that Christianism is a cult. Okay. Now the second part was that um, near the second and third century, now when Christianism started to spread और काफी जगह फैल चुका था, तब बेसिकली जो ग्रेको रोमन फिलोसोफर्स आते हैं, and by that time they started to sort of wage jihad on Roman Empire, so to say. Okay. Uh, Bhupender, you want to say something?
Yeah, yeah. Can you show the book again? The audience wants to actually see the book again so
No,
that
no,
they can
the book
maybe.
I was showing is this Barbary Conversion, right? This book
Okay.
by Richard Fletcher. But
Or
this book I
can you just
got.
hold? Can you just hold this so that people can take a screenshot and they might take it? Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
But
Yeah.
this is not of use because this is written. This the publisher is basically a Christian publisher, you know. So it is a Christian apologist book, basically. Um, the book I would suggest is Catherine Nixie. Catherine Nixie, she is not a apologist. She is writing from the heart. Okay, you can say कि अच्छा ठीक है, थोड़ा balance दे रहे हैं. Letters जो भी उन्हें letters मिला है early Greco-Roman philosophers के, उसको discuss कर रही है. So that is a Catherine Nixie का book थोड़ा genuine book है मेरे हिसाब से. Because
But
references.
Bijit, have you discussed this one?
One more problem. Uh-huh.
Hmm. Have you like the question is rephrased for this one? So I thought okay we can answer this.
The
The
question was
question was on
Judaism and the
the
Old Testament seem to have a defined land boundary with the concept of Holy Land. Was Christianity a cult that was nurtured to remove this constraint? See, Christianity was a cult that initially, as I said, it was not that much in written form. So they were stealing ideas from the Jewish cult, from the Egyptian cult, and all these things, right? But they were not being, for example, this the virgin birth and all these things, right? They stole from some place, but they were not referencing. मतलब this is so typical, right? Western world कभी भी अगर कोई आइडिया इंडिया से लेता है, they appropriate it and then sell back to us. So यही चल रहा था क्रिश्चियनिज्म में. They were mixing a lot of Jewish ideas, a lot of pagan ideas, a lot of hedonistic ideas, a lot of Roman ideas, so to say. but they were not attributing them with the proper
Yes,
references.
most of the Christianity, especially the Catholic one, is actually maybe 90 or 100% Roman. The Catholic sect which is there in Christianity, that their tradition, everything is Roman, almost everything, apart from the book itself.
Right, right.
Hmm.
एंड नाउ लेट मी डिस्कस द फ्रॉड राइट कि जीविश लोगों से क्या क्या चुराया गया था और क्योंकि वही बात है ना कि काफी टाइम क्या होता है कि यूर एग्जाम हॉल में कोई बंदा कुछ लिख रहा है, उसके पीछे जो बैठा हुआ है उसको दिखा रहा है कि चलो ये आंसर शीट है, ये मैं लिख रहा हूँ, बट वो कॉपी करने में गड़बड़ कर देता है। तो ऐसी गड़बड़ी ये जो क्रिश्चियन जो कल्ट मेंबर्स थे वो भी कर रहे थे। And this was actually detected by this guy called Porphyry. So Porphyry is saying ki, okay, even if we accept ki there are some prophecies and all these things in let's say in Judaism, um, then also the Christians deliberately falsified prophecy. Okay, so he's basically saying that Christianity's claim to legitimacy rested not only on the figure of Christ, but also on the assertion that his coming had been foretold by Hebrew prophet. To Porphyry and other Roman critics, this was not fulfillment but forgery. So Porphyry actually wrote extensively critiquing this Christianism. I think so. He wrote 10 to 12 books और सारे बुकों को जला दिया गया। बाद में जब कॉन्स्टेंटाइन द ग्रेट के टाइम पे पोरफायरी के जितने भी काम थे उसको जला दिया गया। तो जैसे उस टाइम का पोरफायरी या फिर सेल्सस, इनके जो क्रिटिक है वो फिर सेकेंडरी अकाउंट में मिलता है। मतलब कोई क्रिश्चियन बंदा पोरफायरी या फिर सेल्सस के कामों को कोट करके उनको क्रिटिक कर रहा है, रिवर्स क्रिटिक कर रहा है, वहां से फिर हमें रेफरेंस मिलता है। अदरवाइज बाकी उस टाइम के जितने ग्रीको रोमन फिलोसोफर के काम थे लगभग सारे जला दिए गए। एनीवे, सो बेसिकली नाउ हियर पोरफायरी इज क्लेमिंग कि दिस क्रिश्चियंस दे आर मिसयूजिंग द ज्यूइश स्क्रिप्चर्स। सो so he's claiming कि these Christians they just took some scattered verses from the Hebrew Bible and then declared them as the prediction of Jesus. और ये क्रिश्चियनिज्म बार बार करता आया है। So for example, there was a guy, probably a pope, who was I think in around 1500 AD. So this guy is claiming कि मतलब एक बुक है जो वो खुद लिख रहा है और वो क्लेम कर रहा है कि दिस बुक इज बीइंग रिटन ऑन 1000 AD। ठीक है, तो खुद का जो बुक लिख रहा है उसका बोल रहा है 500 साल पहले का बोल रहा है, और तो लिख रहा है कि दिस इज बीइंग रिटन ऑन 1000 AD और फिर 1100 AD में हुआ ये होगा, 1200 AD में होगा। तो बेसिकली जो हिस्टोरिसिटी है उसके साथ कंपैटिबिलिटी डालने के लिए ये लोग ऐसे फोर्जरी करते हैं। ये मतलब क्रिश्चियन पोप्स ने किया है। ठीक है, बाद में ये पता चला अच्छा ये पोप शायद ये बुक लिखा था और वो 1500 AD का पोप था। तो इस तरह का फोर्जरी क्रिश्चियनिज्म ने काफी ज्यादा कमिट किया है। एनीवे, so now here what we are discussing, they took some verses from Hebrew Bible and then they sort of molded it and then declared as the prediction of Jesus. Okay, so for example, one would be Isaiah 7.14, जहाँ पे ये रोमन क्रिश्चियंस दे आर सेइंग कि quote, behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son. Now Christians are saying that this is actually foretelling the virgin birth, but Porphyry and Jewish contemporaries noted that the Hebrew word alma means young woman and not virgin woman. In its original context, Isaiah referred to a contemporary political event in Judah, not a distant Messiah. Okay, so this is one inconsistency that got exposed by Porphyry. Then the second one is Psalm 22, where quote, "They pierced my hands and my feet." They are claiming that Jesus is saying this. Then so Christians are claiming that this described the crucifixion, But Porphyry argued that this was poetry about the suffering of psalmist, twisted into the prophecy of a Christ. बोल रहे हैं कि ये तो ओल्ड टेस्टामेंट में ऐसी चीजें ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट करता था, तुमने इसको उठाया और बोला कि क्राइस्ट ये सब बोल रहा है, विच मीन कि ये लोग एक कहानी गढ़ रहे हैं ओल्ड टेस्टामेंट को लेके, एंड मोस्ट प्रोबेबली क्राइस्ट नाम का कोई बंदा है नहीं है सच, जिसका कोई हिस्टोरिकल रेफरेंस हो, जिसको हिस्टोरिकली क्रूसीफाई किया गया हो और वो सन ऑफ गॉड था. दे आर जस्ट मेकिंग थिंग्स अप, राइट. Third one is Isaiah 53. Quote, the suffering servant. Christians read this as the Christ's passion, while Jewish and pagan readers understood it as metaphorical, referring to Israel itself, not a Messiah. ठीक है, तो काफी चीजें हैं जो ओल्ड टेस्टामेंट में या हिब्रू बाइबल में was written about some other prophet, let's say. But now these guys are claiming that these words are related to Christ. ठीक है, तो बेसिकली कॉपी कर रहे हैं और कॉपी में भी ये लोग फ्रॉड कर रहे हैं. So that's why Porphyry saw a deliberate wrenching of texts from their original meaning and context. The context was ignored, metaphors were literalized, and poetry rebranded as history. राइट, कि काफी टाइम जैसे रोमन बुक हो गया या हिब्रू बाइबल हो गया, काफी टाइम ओल्ड जो स्पिरिचुअल टेक्स्ट होता है उसमें मेटाफोर यूज किया जाता है. बट ये जो अब्राहमिक कल्ट्स हैं, दे लिटरलाइज दीज मेटाफोर्स. इसीलिए ये लोग ऐसे क्वेश्चन करते हैं कि वही गणेश का मुंडू क्यों काटा गया था, राइट, ब्रह्मा ने वो क्यों किया था, ये सब जो वियर्ड जो क्वेश्चन आता है, we know कि these are metaphorical, sort of it has a context which is metaphorical, जहाँ से कुछ essential value निकलता है. But Abrahamic cults, because they are invented by illiterates and stupid people, they basically literalize these metaphors, and then they come back to us and then start questioning us. Okay, and sometimes some words are written because these ancient verses were written in the form of poetry. But then these stupid people of these Abrahamic cults, they rebrand those poetry as history. Okay, and then the Porphyry, he said that this was not merely a mistake, but it was a systemic fraud. The apostles and early evangelists, being uneducated, had relied on Jewish scriptures that they barely understood. They misused the metaphors as prophecies and created a narrative to make Jesus seem divinely foretold. This, in Porphyry's eyes, proved that Christianism had no independent authority. It survived only by hijacking another tradition's texts and histories. Okay, so basically, he's claiming that this is a forgery and not a religio. Then also they borrowed the authority and false messiah, right? So the Roman intellectuals, they recognized that Judaism itself had antiquity and coherence, a religio licita, an ancient national faith, right? So Romans are saying that Judaism is a national faith because, as you know, it has a sense of boundary, which has to do with the spiritual appeal of the Hebrew Bible. But in Christianity, they argued they stole the Jewish texts while betraying their meaning, inventing a Messiah who did not exist in the original religio. Thus, Christianity was not only false but parasitic, a movement propped up by scriptural theft and deception. Okay? So basically, here the Roman intellectuals are saying कि ये तो मतलब copyright issue है basically, as they have done some spiritual theft, which should not be appreciated. And then they started finding out contradictions in the Gospels as well. So basically, for example, one example would be the Gospels of Matthew. मैं next lectures में ये सब discuss करूँगा. सो मैथ्यू एंड लूक, तो लूक के गॉस्पेल में बेसिकली वो वाला जो गॉस्पेल है वहां से आता है कि जो होमोसेक्सुअलिटी सिन है, तो होमोसेक्सुअल कोई दिखे तो उसे मार दो, वो लूक वाला गॉस्पेल है. ठीक है, द गॉस्पेल ऑफ मैथ्यू एंड लूक बोथ प्रोवाइड द genealogies of Jesus, yet the two lists are irreconcilable. Matthew traces Jesus' lineage through Solomon, son of David, but Luke traces it through Nathan, another son of David. तो हिब्रू बाइबल में डेविड का दो लीनिएज अलग हो गया था, जहां से फिर बाद में आई थिंक उससे पहले अब्राहम इस्माइल ये सब आए थे, बट डेविड के बाद जो आया था इसमें बोल रहा है कि एक एक गॉस्पेल बोल रहा है कि ये नेथन के थ्रू आया था, नेथन का लीनिएज था जीसस का, दूसरा बोल रहा है सोलोमन का था. And these two lists diverge so radically that they cannot both be accurate. Moreover, if Jesus was born of virgin, his genealogy through Joseph was irrelevant, right? अगर virgin birth हुआ है तो lineage क्यों डाल रहे हो? इसका कोई sense नहीं बनता. So Porphyry mocked this as a sloppy human editing and not some divine revelation. Okay. Then the second point is contradiction in the resurrection narrative. So the central claim of Christianism, the resurrection, was according to Porphyry it was at least consistently reported. मतलब unlike the lineage of Jesus, जिसमें contradiction ये है कि वो virgin birth है या फिर कोई डेविड के lineage से आया है. Unlike that, resurrection वाले narrative में at least consistency है, right? सॉरी, जो रिजरेक्शन का नैरेटिव है इसमें भी कंसिस्टेंसी इश्यूज है, कुछ जगह है बट कुछ जगह मिस इंटरप्रेट किया गया है. फॉर एग्जांपल, इन मैथ्यू एन एंजल डिसेंड्स ड्रामेटिकली, रोल्स अवे द स्टोन एंड स्पीक्स टू द वुमन. इन मार्क ए यंग मैन इन वाइट इज फाउंड. सो बेसिकली जब रिजरेक्शन होता है तब अलग अलग गॉस्पेल में अलग अलग, या तो एंजल का या यंग मैन, या फिर देन लूक में दो और इंसान आ जाता है अच्छे अच्छे कपड़े पहन के, ठीक है. जॉन में फिर एक मैरी मैगडालिन सीज टू एंजल्स एंड जीसस अपीयर्स सेपरेटली. तो अलग अलग गॉस्पेल में अलग अलग तरीके से रिजरेक्शन को वर्णन किया गया है, एंड दे आर नॉट कंसिस्टेंट. द डिटेल्स डिफर इन हु वाज प्रेजेंट, व्हाट दे सॉ एंड व्हाट वाज सेड. फॉर Porphyry this was not divine mystery but evidence of invention. If eyewitnesses cannot agree, the story collapses as fabrication. Third point was inconsistencies in saying and teaching. So the Gospels often attribute different sayings to Jesus in parallel event, right? So for example, the words spoken at the Last Supper differ in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. तो अपोस्टल से जो बात कर रहे हैं वो उसका अकाउंट अलग अलग है. The Sermon on the Mount, as written in Matthew, differs significantly from the Sermon on the Plain, as written by the Luke. And then in John, Jesus speaks in long philosophical discourses, which is absent in the synoptics. Okay, so अलग अलग जो account है Bible में, they are in contradiction to each other. Porphyry hence argued that such discrepancies showed that the Gospels were not the product of divine truth, but of a set of fallible men, each altering the story to suit his audience. ठीक है. And then he is claiming कि it is because the authors were uneducated, hence they confused the texts. So Porphyry goes even further, and he sharpened his critique by emphasizing the social status of the apostles. So most of the apostles were fishermen and commoners, not philosophers. How could such men write coherent divine texts? The contradictions, he claimed, were precisely what one would expect from uneducated fabricators patching together myths. Okay. Then Porphyry even went further. So Porphyry wrote like 10 books. And then Porphyry's assault went beyond mere textual criticism. He started to attack the Christianity's very foundation. He said that if the prophecies are forgeries, then the Jesus was not foretold. Therefore, he cannot be Son of God. If the Gospels contradict themselves, then they are not human error. They are human error. They are not divine truth. And if apostles were uneducated, the Christianity is built on ignorance, not wisdom. Right? So, hence he is saying that if all these points are true, then Christianity or Christianism is not a religion. It is not a revelation of God, but it is the cult of forgery and confusion, which is built on stolen texts and contradictory narratives. Right? So, yeah, so I think this is almost 1.5 hours. I would like to stop here and take some question,
Yes.
and then I will continue it in the next discussion. So the lecture two will be on right and wrong versus good and evil, and in that format, in that context, I will put rest of the inconsistencies as found in Bible, and probably talk a little bit about Bible itself. कि वहाँ पे कैसे क्या लिखा गया है चीज.
Okay, I think we have taken a few questions. Okay, so audience members can join and discuss. So we will have around 15 20 minutes to discuss with the audience. So audience, the link is there in the members only post. So you can come and discuss if you want to discuss any specific points or questions you have with us. And we have one request from a viewer. So he wants us to actually discuss. Okay, not this one. This one. Can you do a series on Aryan Dravidian theory?
श्योर. सो ठीक है. अगले अगर सीरीज ही चलाना है तो यहाँ से फिर हम लोग चालू करते हैं. सीरीज इज एक्चुअली हेल्पफुल.
Yeah, we need to do this. There's a lot of literature, the current literature and previous literature which is there, so it has to be discussed. Okay, so we have with us, praise the Lord. Okay, please go ahead.
Namaskar, Dada. Is my mic okay?
Your audio is bad. Your audio is bad. There's too much background noise from your end.
Now is it good?
No, we can't hear you.
थोड़ा थोड़ा ऊंची बोलो. Be a little
Hello.
louder. I think. हाँ हाँ हाँ.
Can you
Hello.
speak now?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah,
Go
yeah, you
ahead. Go
speak.
ahead.
हाँ.
तो मैं कहना चाह रहा था कि the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes
फिर
me
से
lie
कम हो
down
गया.
in green
वॉल्यूम कम हो गया.
pastures. Actually यहाँ पे
Uh,
पूजा चल रही
yeah,
है तो उसके कारण भी हो सकता है.
no, but your audio is too low. We can actually hear you.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
हाँ, तो मैं कह रहा था the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down the green pastures. He restores my soul. My cup overflows. मैं भूल गया हूँ पर ऐसा ही कुछ मेरा परवरिश हुआ था मिशनरी स्कूल में. तो हम लोग का एक वो होता था मॉरल इंस्ट्रक्शंस करके सब्जेक्ट होता था. तो हम लोग को बोला जाता था कि बाइबल से आप वर्ड्स पढ़ के आओ, उसका परीक्षा देना पड़ेगा, कंठस्थ करके आओ. तो ये हमारा स्थिति थी. तो मैं अपने कुछ अनुभव के बारे में बताना चाहता था, इसीलिए मैं आया.
Please,
तो
please. See, I cannot tell you about this because I am from this, मतलब state board, Bengali state board. But you please go on. I would like to listen.
तो मैं स्कूल का नाम नहीं ले रहा हूँ पर कलकत्ता का बहुत जाना माना स्कूल है. मैं जगह भी बता देता हूँ, मलिक बाजार के पास में. तो आ, वो मुझे कुछ ऐसे साइंस दिखे जहाँ पर पूरा हॉस्टिलिटी दिखता है उनका. जैसे वो लोग सवेरे आधा घंटा चैपल रखते थे जहाँ पर वो बाइबल और यही सब पढ़ाते थे कि बाइबल में क्या लिखा हुआ है ये वो. तो पास्टर्स आते थे. आपको मैं पास्टर्स के सरनेम बताता हूँ. कौर, रामनाथन. ओके. तो ऐसे नाम होते थे पास्टर्स के. तो उस
Right.
समय हम लोग सोचते थे कि कुछ हिंदू लोग ही, क्योंकि ये क्रिश्चियन स्कूल है तो हिंदू लोग ही बाइबल समझाते हैं. पर बाद में पता चला कि ये लोग नाम के हैं पर इनका परिवर्तन हो चुका है. तो ये हम लोग ये एक पॉइंट था जो मुझे बाद में समझ में आया. एक था कि मुझे याद है ये कौर जो थी पास्टर, तो वो एक बार बता रही थी कि कैसे साउथ कोरिया में, एक स्टोरी बता रही थी कि साउथ कोरिया में एक व्यक्ति था जो बुद्धिस्ट था. उसके जीवन में बहुत पीड़ा थी, वो बहुत दुख सह रहा था. और जैसे ही उसको यीशु का लाइट दिखाई दिया तो उसके जीवन में खुशी आ गई. तो मैंने अपने फ्रेंड को ये बात बोली थी, मैं 8वीं कक्षा में था, कि भाई तुमको बाइबल से अच्छा स्टोरी समझाना है, मॉरल इंस्ट्रक्शन देना है, दो. वहाँ पे तुम बुद्धिस्ट का दुख हर लिया और वो यशु को मानने लगा, ये सब क्यों घुसा रहा? और एक एग्जाम्पल था कि हम लोग की फिजिक्स टीचर थी, वो ऐसे ही बात कर रही थी हम लोग को डिसिप्लिन करने के लिए, बोलते बोलते बोली कि ये क्या चल रहा है सड़कों पे, मूर्ति के सामने लोग सर झुकाते, कितना डरते हैं लोग, जहाँ भी देखो पंडाल के सामने सर झुकाते, पूजा आने वाला था ना उस समय। तो मैं जानता हूँ कि उन लोग के टैक्टिक्स क्या है। आप ने ये भी देखा कि मुझे कुछ वर्सेस याद हो गए, तो वो बहुत डीपली कंडीशन करते। एक समय था कि मैं मूर्ति पूजा विरोधी हो गया था, कि मैंने बोला, मतलब 8th या 9th स्टैंडर्ड में हुआ था ये, कि नहीं मैं मूर्ति को नहीं पूजूंगा, मैं ये मूर्ति पूजा गलत है। तो ऐसी कुछ घटनाएं हमारे स्कूल में होती है। और मैं देखता था कि बहुत लोग, जो लोग के पेरेंट्स कन्वर्ट हो गए थे, उनके बच्चों को स्पेशल ट्रीटमेंट मिलना, ये अब मुझे समझ में आ रहा है। एक समय पहले समझ में नहीं आ रहा था, अब समझ में आ रहा है। तो ये मैंने देखा है क्रिश्चियन स्कूल्स में, मेरे स्कूल में मैंने देखा है। कुछ कुछ स्कूल इतने एग्रेसिव नहीं होते क्रिश्चियन स्कूल्स, पर मेरे स्कूल में देखा है। फिर संडे स्कूल का एक होना, कि वो लोग बोलते थे कि आपको यदि संडे स्कूल ज्वाइन करना है तो कीजिए, आपको स्पेशल बेनिफिट्स मिलेंगे। फिर जितने लोग थे, को सब मतलब क्या बोलते, एक ऐसे बैकग्राउंड से आते थे जैसे झारखंड वगैरह या साउथ से, ऐसे जहाँ पर आप जानते हैं कि कन्वर्जन ज़्यादा है। तो वो थोड़ा कनेक्टिंग द डॉट्स मुझे मिल रहा है। मैंने देखा है। तो आप लोग क्रिश्चियनिटी के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, तो मुझे लगा बताना चाहिए कि कैसे चलता है इन लोग का। इन लोग का हॉस्पिटल भी होता है, उसमें भी स्पेशल रिजर्वेशंस रहते हैं
राइट।
इनके कम्युनिटी के लिए। आपके फीस में कटौती हो जाती है, तो बहुत कुछ है, मतलब बहुत बहुत बेनिफिट्स देते इफ़ यू कन्वर्ट टू देयर। ये हम लोग से हिम्स गवाते थे। तो हमने देखा है कि किस तरह से किया जाता है। एक एग्रेशन था कि आपको मतलब कोई भी विजिबल मार्कर नहीं होना चाहिए आपके बॉडी पर, जो आपको रिलीजन को दिखाए। जैसे आप हिंदू है और आप कलावा या नाल बांध के जाते हैं, तो लोग उसी समय टोक देते थे कि आपने ये क्यों पहना है, ये पहनना अलाउड नहीं है, आपको पहनना है तो अपने शर्ट के अंदर पहनिए। तो ये सब हमने देखा है, वो हॉस्टिलिटी हमने झेली है। एक बार हिस्ट्री टेक्स्ट बुक में लिखा हुआ था कि ब्रिटिश यूज टू प्रमोट मिशनरीज टू कन्वर्ट पीपल। तो हमारी हिस्ट्री टीचर ने बोल के कटवा दिया कि ये मत पढ़ना, ये 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 एक्यूरेट नहीं। तो मुझे याद है कि पूरा क्लियरली प्रोग्राम किया जाता था। तो हाँ, बस मुझे यही कहना था कि ये आज आप बात कर रहे हैं, तो क्योंकि मेरा अनुभव ऐसा
नहीं,
रहा है, तो मुझे लगा आपके
अभी
साथ
तो और
साझा
10
करना चाहिए।
अभी तो और 10-11 एपिसोड होने वाला है। सी माय एक्सपीरियंस इज दैट कि मैं जिस स्कूल में था वो सरकारी स्कूल था, बिल्कुल ही बंगाली मीडियम। बगल वाला एक मिशनरी स्कूल था, और उसके बगल में एक मिशनरी गर्ल्स स्कूल था, और फिर उसके आसपास एक चर्च था। इनफैक्ट हमारे बगल में ही वो चर्च था, और बाकी दो स्कूल उधर ही थे। तो हमें फिर स्कूल से, मैं, ये मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है, स्कूल से जा रहा था या आ रहा था, फिर इन्होंने मुझे एक छोटा सा वो लिफलेट टाइप बुक पकड़ा दिया, बिल्कुल ही पतला सा, अच्छे अच्छे ड्राइंग थे, और फिर बंगाली में लिखा हुआ था। और फिर मैंने जैसे ही, और उस टाइम पे मतलब बच्चा ही था मैं, लेकिन जैसे इनके स्टोरीज पढ़े ना, मुझे हंसी आया, लिटरली, ट्रस्ट में। मुझे इतना हंसी आया कि मैं टिफिन पीरियड में वो जो लिफलेट था वो लेके, हम सब 7-8 जो बॉयज स्कूल था, तो यू कैन इमेजिन किस तरह का उधर बवाल होता है। तो उधर हमने बैठे, मतलब वहां पे हम ये छोटा सा लिफलेट लेके बैठे, फिर ये जो रिजर्वेक्शन क्रूसिफिक्शन, उससे उससे जो गॉड बना रहे हैं, उसका हमने भरपूर मजा लिया। मतलब कि अलग अलग चीजें एक्ट आउट किया कि और किस किस तरीके से गॉड बनाया जा सकता है, और क्या काट सकते हो जिससे गॉड बन जाएगा कोई, ठीक है। So this was our फर्स्ट encounter with Christianism, एंड इट वाज वेरी फनी. इट वाज नॉट एट ऑल धार्मिक टू मी बिकॉज इसमें कोई कहीं स्पिरिचुअलिटी नहीं है. मतलब ये सब तो बी ए लैम्ब ऑफ जीसस ये सब तो बाद में आता है. वहां तो कंप्लीटली इंसान को एक स्लेव बना देता है. बट ओवरऑल जो स्टोरी है यहाँ पे स्पिरिचुअलिटी नहीं है, ना ही इसमें कुछ ब्रेवरी है. यू जस्ट इमेजिन द होल स्टोरी. यहाँ पे ब्रेवरी कहाँ पे है? यहाँ पे ना ब्रेवरी है, करेज है, ट्रूथफुलनेस है, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, कुछ नहीं है यहाँ पे. सिर्फ ओबीडियंस है, सिर्फ सर्विट्यूड है, सिर्फ फियर है, सिर्फ कावर्डिस है. इसीलिए ये सुपरस्टिशन है. ये कभी मतलब ग्रेको रोमन सेंस में ये रिलीजियो भी नहीं है, ये रिलीजन है ही नहीं.
हाँ, जैसे हमारे चैपल में बहुत सारे प्लेज इनएक्ट आउट किए जाते थे, इनएक्ट किए जाते थे, प्ले किए करते थे वो लोग. तो उसमें मुझे एक चीज़ देखने को मिलता था कि एक प्रकार से मिजरी को फेटिशाइज या रोमांटिसाइज करना, कि आप किसी की पीड़ा का महिमा मंडन कर रहे हैं और उसमें आप उसको महान बता रहे कि ये पीड़ित था, शोषित था, तो वो महान था. जैसे क्राइस्ट की यदि इनकी नैरेटिव देखे क्राइस्ट को लेकर, तो यही है कि बचपन से उनके पीछे कोई पड़ा था जो उनको मारना चाहता था एज अ बेबी, क्योंकि राजा ने आदेश दिया था कि सारे बच्चों को मार दो या जीसस को खोज के मार दो. ये उनकी स्टोरी है. अब ये कितना सटीक है या नहीं है मैं नहीं जानता, पर हम लोगों को ये कहानी बताई जाती थी. तो कैसे बचे थे वो, कैसे रोए भी नहीं जब गुफा में उनके माता पिता छुपे हुए थे, तो वो कैसे दूसरे बच्चों के जैसे रोए नहीं, और कैसे वो अपने माता पिता को और स्वयं को बचा लिए. ये सारी बातें की जाती थी. एक वो अवे इन मेंजर करके गाना था, आ, कि कैसे उनका जन्म हुआ था और कैसे वो बच के निकले थे. तो ये सारी स्टोरीज बताई जाती थी. तो वो मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा याद है. और एक चीज़ है जो मैं कहूँगा क्रिश्चियनिटी का एक बहुत ही स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट है, दैट आपको वो करुणा रस से कहीं ना कहीं भर देता है. वो मेरे साथ भी बचपन में हुआ था कि आई स्टार्टेड डेवलपिंग अ सेंस ऑफ सिंपथी फॉर जीसस, कि वो कितने करुणामयी थे, सबको फॉरगिव कर देते थे, इतना कुछ हुआ फिर भी उन्होंने माफ़ कर दिया लोगों को. वो एक आपके मन में वो बात डाल दी जाती है. बहुत ही मतलब आपको इमोशनली चार्ज अप करते हैं. आपकी आप जैसे महिलाओं को करते हैं ना, मैं मिसोजिनिस्ट नहीं हो रहा, पर
इसीलिए तो
महिलाओं
कल्ट
को
है,
थोड़ा सा
इसीलिए तो कल्ट है. दैट्स व्हाई इट
एम्पैथी
इज
को
कल्ट.
अपील करते हैं ना, वैसा है. तो ये मेरे साथ भी हुआ था. मैं अपने फादर को बता रहा था एक बार बचपन में कि देखो जीसस क्राइस्ट बहुत अच्छे थे, वो सबको क्षमा कर दिए, ये वो. मेरे पिताजी भी बोले हाँ 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 हाँ. तो उस समय तो उतना ध्यान नहीं था कि इनका क्या चल रहा है, पर याद है. हाँ, अब मैं बात करते करते मुझे एक और बात याद आई कि एक मेरा क्लासमेट था जिसके पेरेंट्स और वो नए नए शायद बने थे क्रिश्चियन, मैं ठीक से नहीं बता सकता, पर वो उसकी मम्मी आती है, मेरे क्लास टीचर जो है उसके पास ले जाती है और क्लास टीचर डांटती है, बोलती है तुम ऐसा क्यों किए, क्यों क्यों गए मम्मी को बिना बताए, तुमको नहीं जाना चाहिए था. अब मैं बताता हूँ कहाँ गया था वो लड़का. वो लड़का था नेपाली, ठीक है, नेपाली प्रधान सरनेम था उसका, ठीक है. तो वो गया था सरस्वती पूजा के विसर्जन में. तो बोला तुम क्यों गए विसर्जन में माँ को बताए बिना, नहीं जाना चाहिए था, ये तो गलत बात है, ये तो आप गलत दिशा में जा रहे हैं. तो उस समय मुझे लगा कि ऐसे ही डांटा होगा कि मम्मी की बात नहीं मानी तो डांट दिया बच्चे को. पर अब मुझे समझ में आ रहा है क्यों डांटा. वो डाटा कि तुम कन्वर्ट हुए, तुमने हिंदू लोग के त्यौहार में भाग क्यों लिया. तो वो सब समझ में आने लगता है कि आप पहले पहले सोचते हो कि ये सब नॉर्मल चल रहा है, पर बाद में समझ में आने लगता है. और एक जो आपने रिलीजियो और सुपरस्टिशियो को लेकर बात की, आपने शायद मेंशन किया कि क्या तो मेंशन किया आपने कि वो लोग कुछ ओकल्ट प्रैक्टिसेस ना क्या, मैं मैं आपका पॉइंट भूल गया, पर मैं देखता हूँ आजकल के रैशनलिस्ट लोग
The
जो है ना,
bread
जो
and the
हमको
wine,
बहुत
the bread and the wine, cannibalism, right? And incestuous orgies. Because they used to
नॉट
call
एग्जैक्टली।
each other's brothers and sisters, and then used to marry each other and then engage in sex, right? um सेकेंड पॉइंट ये है कि
मैं
काफी काफी सारे कार्टिस्ट पॉइंट है, बट मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंट इज कि जीसस जहाँ पे बोल रहा है कि दिस ब्रेड इज माई बॉडी एंड द वाइन इज माई ब्लड, और फिर लोग उसको फिर मतलब लास्ट सपर है तो इसलिए उसके अपोस्टल उसे खा रहे हैं पी रहे हैं, उस वो ट्रेडिशन अभी भी चलता है। सो देन इट गिव्स द इम्प्रेशन टू द रोमन्स की शायद ये करते होंगे उस टाइम पे कैनिबलिज्म, और उसको री इंटरप्रेट करके जीसस का बॉडी एंड ब्लड पे डाल दिया। But yeah, so these practices were being criticized by the Romans.
हाँ हाँ, आपकी पॉइंट सच है, पर कुछ और पॉइंट था जिस पर मुझे बोलना था, जो मैं आजकल के जो ये झूठे रैशनलिस्ट्स हैं ना, जो हिंदू धर्म को क्रिटिसाइज करते हैं ये साइंस के नाम पर, ये सब है तो ढकोसला। ये मुझे कोई बहुत सारे झूठे रैशनलिस्ट्स में भी देखने को मिलता है। आप जो कह रहे हैं एग्जैक्टली वो नहीं, पर एक पॉइंट आपने रेस किया था, मैं भूल गया वो पॉइंट। तो अ, तो वो भी मैं बताना चाह रहा था दैट देर आर पैरेलल्स बिटवीन दिस नियो एथीस्ट माइंडसेट एंड ऑल्सो दैट क्रिश्चियनिटी विच यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इन रोम, कि
Right.
कि क्या तो आप बोल रहे थे कि वो लोग मूर्ति पूजा करते थे, तो क्रिश्चियनिटी के लोग उसको, मैं भूल गया आपका आपने क्या पॉइंट रेस किया था, नहीं तो मैं आपको
Uh,
बताता कि
ये
कैसे।
तो मुझे भी याद नहीं आ रहा, बट न्यू एथिज्म, सी एथिज्म इज एक्चुअली अ डेरिवेटिव ऑफ ऑल दिस एब्राहमिक कल्ट्स, और मैं ये प्रूव करूंगा कि सी यू कैन क्रिएट आइडियोलॉजी विथ द आइडिया ऑफ गॉड और विदाउट द आइडिया ऑफ एनी गॉड। इसमें ऐसा कुछ है नहीं। एथिज्म अगर तुम बोलोगे कि गॉड एक सेंट्रल गॉड रखूंगा, वहां से उसको सेंटर में रख के कुछ कुछ वैल्यूज लिख दूंगा और वहां से कल्ट क्रिएट करूंगा, वो भी किया जा सकता है। दूसरा है कि कोई ऊपर गॉड नहीं रखूंगा बट मैं प्रॉफिट बना रहूंगा, इससे मार्क्सिज्म जैसा आइडियोलॉजी क्रिएट हो सकता है। सो मतलब एथिज्म इनफैक्ट क्रिश्चियन, यहाँ पे अभी सीजेक नाम का आई थिंक एक फिलोसोफर है अभी, यूरोप में है। um, तो ये बंदा ही सेज कि ही इज क्रिश्चियन एथिस्ट, मार्क्सिस्ट है, बट देन ही सेज कि आई एम क्रिश्चियन एथिस्ट। एंड व्हाट इज हिज क्लेम? वो क्लेम करता है कि जब जीसस को क्रॉस में डाला, देन ओके, सो व्हेन द जीसस डाइड ऑन द क्रॉस, so the son of god died, god sort of evaporated from the scenario, and what remained was the holy spirit. Hence, he is saying ki I belong to that Holy Spirit, and because I am a Holy Spirit without any God or any Son of God taking care of me, hence I am sort of a Christian atheist. So एथिज्म भी मतलब क्रिश्चियनिज्म से ये लोग इस तरह से एथिज्म को भी निकाल लेते हैं।
भले ही इनके सोच में अंतर हो, पर सोचने के ढंग में अंतर नहीं। जो सिस्टम ऑफ थिंकिंग है वही वो सेम है, कि वो एक्सक्लूसिविस्ट, कि ये करोगे तो ये नहीं हो सकता, ये करोगे तो वो नहीं हो सकता, वो बाइनरी थिंकिंग, वो मुझे एथिस्ट में भी दिखाई देती है और क्रिश्चियंस में भी दिखाई देती है, एब्राहमिक आइडियोलॉजीज में भी। एक पॉइंट रेट्रोवेव यूनिवर्स ने उठाया था कि क्या बोलते हैं, क्या तो उन्होंने कहा था, पता नहीं, मैं भूलता रहता हूँ। तो हाँ, तो यही यही मुझे कहना था कि ये क्रिश्चियनिटी का डिस्कशन बहुत अच्छा होने वाला है, क्योंकि मेरा कुछ एक्सपीरियंस है उनके साथ। मेरे फ्रेंड्स तो सब ठीक ही थे, पर वो जो सिस्टम में मैं रहा हूँ तो मैं जानता हूँ कि उनके टैक्टिक्स क्या होते हैं लोगों को कन्वर्ट करने के, या लोगों को माइंड को थोड़ा सा प्रभावित करके। तो अम, वो वाली बात, तो हाँ, ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है। आप जो कह रहे, जो इस विषय पे बात कर रहे थे।
राइट राइट राइट। या मतलब क्योंकि ये लोग शब्दों के साथ खेलते हैं ना, दे प्ले विथ वर्ड्स, तो हम लोग धीरे धीरे जब एक्सप्लोर करेंगे ना, तब और दिमाग खुलेगा वो। मतलब क्योंकि हम हम लोग जब देखें कि इंग्लिश के इतने सारे वर्ड जो हम लोग कितना कैजुअली यूज करते हैं, बट उनको एक्चुअली पहले यूज किया गया है टू सॉर्ट ऑफ किल एंड कन्वर्ट पीपल, और वो वर्ड को फिर नॉर्मलाइज कर दिया गया है। तो क्रिश्चियनिटी क्या करता है, एक वर्ड को चुनता है, उसको फिर आग लगाता है उससे, और फिर उसको रीनॉर्मलाइज कर देता है। जिससे पता नहीं चलता है कि वो वर्ड उस एक स्पेसिफिक हिस्टोरिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कभी यूज हुआ था। Until unless you go to like letters of that time कि लोग क्या लिख रहे हैं, नहीं तो पता ही नहीं चलता। तो ये सब मैं डिस्कस करूंगा। And then the
Uh,
question is, please tell us
mm,
about
mm,
how and which concept of Hinduism was stolen by Christianity, and how did that knowledge pass geographically? Okay, so एक बड़ा hoax है। I don't know, मतलब ये सबको पता है कि काफी लोग, इनफैक्ट it came from a conspiracy theory written by one of the European sort of philosopher, जो ये क्लेम कर रहे थे कि जीसस केम टू इंडिया और सॉर्ट ऑफ द अखंड भारत, ही वेंट टू तिब्बत, और जहाँ पे उनको कृष्ण के बारे में पता चला और वहां से वो क्राइस्ट हो गया, तो कृष्ण से क्राइस्ट हो गया। ये एक होक्स है। शायद उन्होंने इसलिए ये सब इन्वेंट किया होगा बिकॉज दे वांटेड टू अप्रोप्रिएट एंड डाइजेस्ट हिंदुइज्म, जो ये कर नहीं पाए और कर भी नहीं पाएंगे बेसिकली, क्योंकि जितना भी ये प्रथा वथा ट्रेडिशन रथ यात्रा जितना भी इम्यूलेट कर ले, हिंदुइज्म क्रिश्चियनिटी से ऊपर है, एटलीस्ट इन द मतलब लेवल ऑफ थिंकिंग थोड़ा ऊपर है। तो वहां तक पहुंचने के लिए क्रिश्चियनिज्म को हिंदुइज्म बनना पड़ेगा। दिस इज माई हाइपोथेसिस। बट हाँ, लोगों को कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं, फिर इट कैन एक्चुअली नेल द, आई मीन इट कैन एक्चुअली किल हिंदुइज्म इन दिस सब कॉन्टिनेंट। उस तरह से किया जा सकता है जैसे रोमन के साथ किया गया है। वी डोंट नो दिस लाइक नोबल रोमन आइडियाज, राइट? कि एक्चुअली क्या क्या आइडिया, मतलब रोमन फिलोसोफर के बारे में भी जो बात होता है वो एक्चुअली क्रिश्चियन लेंस से होता है। डू यू रियलाइज दैट, राइट? जो एक बंदा था जो इस चीज को उठाया था कि आई विल ब्रिंग बैक द होल ऑफ यूरोप इनटू पेगन वैल्यूज, वो था फ्रेडरिक नीत्शे। उसने वो ऑन द जीनियोलॉजी ऑफ मोरल्स वो पढ़ के मेरा एक्चुअली दिमाग खुला था। ही wanted to take Europe back to the pagan morals, the Greco-Roman morals. बट वो जब मरा उसके बाद उसका कितना बदनामी किया गया कि इसको गोनोरिया हो गया है, पता नहीं क्या क्या बोला गया, और बोला गया वो इतना पागल हो गया इसलिए मर गया। सो दीज आर ऑल नैरेटिव, राइट? प्रोबेबली ही डाइड अ वेरी पेनफुल डेथ फॉर सम डिजीज, बट उसको फिर उसमें गंदगी डाला गया, एंड आई एम प्रीटी श्योर इट इज अ नैरेटिव। एक क्वेश्चन क्या है, रिक्वेस्ट दैट एवरीवन रीड द बुक व्हाई एवरी हिंदू शुड नो अबाउट क्रिश्चियनिटी बाय कलाबाई वेंकट। मैं ये पढ़ूंगा, मैंने ये पढ़ा नहीं है। आई विल हैव टू रीड दिस। थैंक यू फॉर द सजेशन।
अपने फेडरिक निड्जे का नाम दिया तो कॉलेज स्ट्रीट कोलकाता के दादा बहुत प्रसन्न होंगे। वो बहुत प्रभावित है उनसे, फेडरिक निड्जे से, कि
नहीं, द पॉइंट
एक
कोलकाता में
प्रकार
क्या
से।
होता है, कोलकाता में जब फ्रेडरिक नीत्शे बोला जाता है, या फिर यूट्यूब में भी जो जब आप देखेंगे फ्रेडरिक नीत्शे के बारे में लोग बात कर रहे हैं काफी टाइम, उसका जो बिल्कुल ही मतलब रेडिकल एंटी क्रिश्चियन एटीट्यूड था कि मैं क्रिश्चियनिज्म को खत्म कर दूंगा यूरोप से, उस तरह उसमें भी थोड़ा एपोलॉजी आ जाता है, यू माइट हैव नोटिस्ड। और मतलब नीचे का ये जो एटीट्यूड है ये तो कैलकाटा में डिस्कस भी नहीं होता, क्योंकि कैलकाटा में ना लोगों को क्रिश्चियनिटी पता है, ना कैलकाटा में लोग सोच पाते हैं कि यार क्रिश्चियनिटी व्हाट काइंड ऑफ मोरल इट कैन ब्रिंग, बिकॉज हम लोग हिंदू है, हम लोग उस जोन में जा नहीं सकते अनटिल अनलेस कोई क्रिटिकली इस चीज को पढ़ के फिर उस जोन में जाने की कोशिश कर रहा हो, राइट? जैसे आपने बताया कि स्कूल के थ्रू 10 साल 12 साल में वो जोन आपको मिल जाता है, बट मेरे पास वो जोन था नहीं, मुझे डिस्कवर करना पड़ रहा है। और उसके लिए निश्चय भी इंपॉर्टेंट है कि मैं देख रहा हूँ अच्छा निश्चय एक्चुअली उस जोन से इंसानों को निकालने की कोशिश कर रहा है। सो निश्चय को बेसिकली एक रेडिकल फिलोसोफर की तरह पोर्ट्रे किया जाता है, बट उसका जो एंटी क्रिश्चियन एटीट्यूड था कि हर सेंटेंस में उसका एंटी क्रिश्चियन एटीट्यूड है, उसको छुपाया गया है।
मतलब
uh,
निड्जे खाली क्रिश्चियनिटी को क्रिटिक नहीं करते थे। मैं एक लास्ट पॉइंट बोल लूँ दादा, आप फिर, मैं जानता हूँ आपको समय का अभाव है। नीचे खाली क्रिश्चियन, जितना मैंने नीचे को सुना है या नीचे के बारे में सुना है, वो खाली क्रिश्चियनिटी के कुछ बातों को क्रिटिक नहीं कर रहे थे, वो पूरे उस सिस्टम ऑफ थिंकिंग को ही उखाड़ कर फेंक देना चाहते थे।
एग्जैक्टली
कि वो जो एक विक्टिमहुड कॉम्प्लेक्स है, कि
जिसको
विक्टिम
हम
है
जूडियो
तो देर
क्रिश्चियन
इज अ
वैल्यू बोलते
वर्च्यू
हैं,
इन दैट।
यूएस में आजकल
हाँ
बोल रहे हैं
सर।
ना जूडियो क्रिश्चियन वैल्यू. So he stood against the whole narrative, that whole Judeo-Christian narrative. जिसे हम लोग Abrahamic narrative बोलते हैं नवविमर्श में. So he was against the whole sort of everything that this value has created. He stood against all of it. अब बार बार वो लिखता है कि I will take this down, I will take this down, I will go back to whatever. जराथुस्त्र के बारे में एक बुक लिखा, जीनियोलॉजी ऑफ मोरल्स में तो भाई पेन लिया है, मतलब एक दो पेज ऐसे लिखा है. मैं इन माय नेक्स्ट बुक आई एम गोइंग टू कोट दोस लाइक 2-3 पेजेस वर्बिटम, क्योंकि वो कोई लिखा नहीं है उस तरीके से. आई डोंट नो वेदर आई विल स्टार्ट विद दोस कोट्स, बट आई विल जस्ट पुट देम एज दे आर.
Yes, I think we have around 5 minutes to wind up the show. So I think it was a really good beginning. I think we took some comments and questions from the audience as well. So next series we'll have a structure. So like Bijita will speak for about 15-20 minutes or whatever the length, and then we will take the question so that we can have a
Right,
coherent discussion. And thank you
right.
for joining. Thank you everybody for your questions, for recommendations. Thank you, Namudi sir, for the recommendation. We really appreciate listening to us, giving us recommendation. This really helps us to actually get more read, get more data, get more research done, so that we can give more comprehensive information to the audience. So thank you very much. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.
जय श्री राम, वंदे मातरम.